there that if you want to dig out some of this stuff or see where the numbers came from, they're in those articles. So where should we spend our money? Anybody?
Space.
Space? We're going to have to find a new planet pretty soon?
Education.
The Venus Project.
What's the Venus Project?
It's a
Pacifying all men?
it's actually remarkable. It's more or less, I mean, it's kind of based in communistic ideals, I guess. The Jacques, what was his last name? No. This guy spent most of the majority of his life engineering it, and it's basically housing that takes care of itself. I don't know. If you go on YouTube and just look up the Venus Project, you'll see it. I mean, it's so cool.
Energy use and
yeah,
water use.
It takes care of itself. I mean, it's all self-sustaining. I mean,
you can grow your food.
Yep. Fuel's not a problem anymore with it. The way he has it all set up. I mean, he actually built a smaller version of what he wants to build down in Venus, Florida. But I tell you, it's pretty cool.
Almost like an encapsulated community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know there's not research, but development going on in things of that nature. For cities, large buildings can be made much more self-sustaining. They can collect their own energy, and they can actually grow their own food. They can recycle their own water to a large extent, so they become very efficient. And there are other efficiencies in having people fairly close together. This idea of the Iowa farmland being slowly converted to 3 or 4 McMansions per section is a little ridiculous.
And plus cut down spending of what's called yield farming production too.
It costs that, right.
Yeah.
And the population of the world's going up. Food production is not matching population growth. About 1 billion people right now live on the very edge of starvation. That's 1/7 of the Earth's population. And then a rise in corn price pushes a lot of them across that line and they die.
Well, I think too, I guess, as a member of Veterans for Peace, it concerns me that when we call for defense cuts, okay, and there are across-the-board cuts, and so they say, okay, we've cut spending, the Pentagon cut spending, and then we find out where they cut the spending was. They cut college benefits for veterans. They're cutting health care for veterans. Why is it on the backs of the veterans that they're doing this? Rather than, oh, we don't like the planes that you were talking about, oh, we'll manufacture those. What a waste. And then we have young men and women coming back from war who aren't getting the things that they were promised
before they left. How many are coming back?
What's that?
How many are coming back from war?
Well, that's the other thing, repeated deployments.
More than 1 million. And there were a few thousand deaths in theater of U.S. soldiers. I don't know, 4,000 or something. You know the number? But the number that were seriously wounded but were saved, I'll put saved in quotes. I mean, they're alive, but they are damaged in profound ways, disabled in profound ways, and they're going to live for a large number of years. And the burden that creates on the the VA medical system is staggering. And over their lifetime, over the next couple generations, 50 years or so, it's going to be a few $1 trillion right there, just to manage that. And we don't know where that's coming from. And I think that veterans, the way they can make those kind of cuts is that veterans don't have a voice in Congress. Do they? I mean, Boeing, Grumman,
Yeah, they don't have that kind of voice.
Raytheon, they have a voice in Congress. And they can lobby in very slick, persuasive. In fact, they just demonstrate how they can pull the rug out from under the congressman if they don't go their way. And I don't think veterans are able to do that.
I have a question. We keep hearing the reason we're not going to war in Syria is because constituents are war weary. Do you think that's a fact or not?
Well, I hope to God we're war weary.
The reason I say that because directly, either by being in the military or loss of life or loss of mental or physical capacity, I don't think 5% of the U.S. people have been directly involved in the war. 5% is 15 million of our population.
Yep, I agree with that.
So in the sense that we have another 285 million people who are just living our lives day to day, I really believe that the people of the United States are fed up with deception, waste of our resources. I mean, when you say war weary, that implies that people have been actively involved. To me, it means they're actively involved in the war. But I believe that they're deceiving the people of this country by saying we're war weary, by covering up the deception, the waste of resources, and what you're talking about, the military complex taking advantage of the economic base in the United States.
It's a complicated issue, and for even those who were not directly involved, not personally impacted by, didn't have to make any sacrifices regarding the Iraq and Afghan war. I think even those people are war weary, and they really don't want to hear any more of this.
I know, are we war weary or war leery?
I think war leery is good, and but there's an objective basis for it. I mean, you can point to why. And in order to take military action again, especially if it's in a tinderbox that could set off World War III, I don't think that's too much of an exaggeration. It's a very dangerous part of the world. Is that there has to be a lot of political support. And it's hard to see that political support from if you remember when we went into Iraq in 2002, there was a lot of support for that. I'm behind my president 100%, right or wrong, I'm behind my president. That always bugged me, right or wrong. Do I want to be behind my president if he's wrong? I don't think so. But it kind of went that way. There was a lot of enthusiasm for doing that, and people were glued to the tube and just couldn't wait to see the fireworks over Baghdad.
John, I've been curious since I moved to Cedar Rapids about 7, 8 years ago that we have one of the biggest military suppliers around with Rockwell Collins, and why there has not been more attention focused on that, and why people who are involved in peace advocacy don't focus on Rockwell Collins as a major concern in this military, industrial, media, congressional complex. Do you have a notion about why Rockwell Collins seems to be so exempt from that kind of focus?
It's not just them, it's thousands of outfits. And Rockwell Collins is actually pretty small. Rockwell Collins is actually pretty small.
Well, it's big in Cedar Rapids.
It's not in the top 11 military suppliers. They asked, what would the mayor of Cedar Rapids say? How would he answer that?
With a lie.
And what would let's see, Representative Lobsack is for this area, this
Nope,
congressional
we
area?
have Braley.
Braley. What would
Thank
Representative Braley say about that? Or if everything works out like Senator Braley, what would he say about it?
Well, I'm sure he'd talk about jobs. It's
Okay.
the biggest employer in Cedar Rapids. It has a big impact on the economy. If it went away, Cedar Rapids would be, if not prostrate, at least would be seriously wounded economically, and I think that's the rationale for it. But it's, as you mentioned earlier, every state and almost every congressional district has some kind of military resource that, gets a pass.
Yep. These roots are deep. They're deep and it's like trying to stop metal.
Also,
Pulling up.
Robin, I've thought about that many times, and the reason that people here aren't identifying and profiling Rockwell is 2 or 3 reasons. One, you don't see any tanks or munitions coming out. People tend to view their communications, which is the main hub, as not really a military conflict item. And as I say, between the profile and image at Rockwell as a communication manufacturer, they don't associate that with weaponry or hardware, and you don't see a rail system carrying out weaponry or hard equipment. And then, as I say, that the image of it's a communication manufacturing center. They don't link that to the military complex. So you have those 2 reasons. You don't physically see anything moving out, and you don't identify communications as a military destructive manufacturing center. That's my perception.
Over here, then you.
I think a factor also is just how total control of information is at this point. Because in my 20s, I attended Regis College, which is a Catholic university in Denver, Colorado. We were very active with bringing in the Berrigan brothers, and the entire campus was an anti-war campus. And when Clay Jones, CEO of Rockwell, was going to be the guest speaker, 4 people, I was one of the 4, was there to just hand out an information sheet about Rockwell's involvement in the war economy. And we were stopped at the door. No information could possibly be allowed on that. Now you consider just that shift in a generation, just how, in our university had the attitude that any and every idea was worth talking about. But this was just total control, and you couldn't even talk about it.
Interesting point.
Well, another thing to consider is Rockwell's public relations machine. And the media in this town, KCRG and the Gazette, just as an example, as far as the media, last year we had Kathy Kelly come and speak at the Islamic Center. She's been on the ground in Afghanistan at least 8 times, working with a youth peace organization in Afghanistan. She came to talk. We sent out press releases. We contacted the media following those press releases, KCRG, the Gazette, KGAN. None of them came and covered her. I wrote a scathing letter to the editor of the Gazette, at least, and told them if the story was Rockwell Collins getting a new contract, it would have been on the front page of the Gazette. It would have been all over KCRG and KGAN. But this courageous woman who has been on the ground in Afghanistan 8 times warranted no press. And I think when you look at the Show You Care sponsors, you know, that they talk about, St. Luke's, Mercy, Rockwell Collins, they're all Show You Care sponsors of this event, that event. That's great public relations for Rockwell Collins.
It's marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
I gave you a deception, I gave you a definition of marketing that I think is very apt, but I don't want to have it filmed.